For news and opinion that you won't find on Fox or MSNBC, check out America's Survival TV on Roku, in the channel store under News and Weather, or on the Roku website, use access code USA123, or on YouTube at the USA Survival channel, America's Survival TV on Roku.
Radio for Readers, Bookmark.
This is Bookmark. I'm Marc Bernier. The nation's top authors are coming up next.
Bookmark.
Ken Tucker joined a company called Tag Consulting as a senior partner back in 2010. He's here to talk about two books with us on the Bookmark program, The Leadership Triangle, and there's a chapter within this book that leaps to another book, Your Intentional Difference. And he joins us in Miami for the Miami Book Fair International. Thanks for being with us today.
Thank you, Mark. Thanks for having me.
You know, I was wondering, because I think are you from Jamaica originally?
I'm from the Bahamas.
From the Bahamas, and you live in Washington now?
Washington, D.C.
Well, you have family there. And
right.
I'm wondering, of these principles, is it more difficult to have principled leadership now, given all the changes that are happening in business? Because people are wondering, what's their insurance going to be like? Am I going to have a job? Is it tougher to be a manager now than it ever was because the landscape keeps changing?
I want to change the word tougher to say it's different to be a manager now. In the 20th century, managers were called upon to be what I call mechanic managers. You know, they knew how to fix the machine, kick it, and then it got going.
Right.
In the 21st century, they must be psychologist managers.
And there's not a lot of that. I noticed that in talking with people, their biggest complaint is people who are in positions of management don't know how to deal with people. They have directives, they've got a bottom line to meet, but when employees have challenges and they go to those managers to work it out, the managers don't want to deal with it. Mm-hmm. Is that widespread?
Yeah, it's like the best of times and the worst of times when it comes to management and leadership. It's the best of times because we have a multi-generational workforce. We have all generations working together. And it's the best of times for creative ideas and for opportunities for people to own their space and to just unleash their potential. So it's the best of times for that. It's the worst of times because we're still suffering from an archaic way of leading and managing. Because we look at leadership as a noun, whereas it's not a noun, it's a verb. Leadership is action. And management is not about managing others, but first about managing self.
Okay. Often people who are the best salesmen get elevated to positions of management, but they may not be good managers. It's like the good baseball player who may have had great talent on the field, but he can't manage a team.
That's right. Exactly.
How common is that problem?
Very common, all right, because again, it's the old competency model. All right, where we end up with people who, as the Peter Principle says, arrive at that place where they are incompetent. They are promoted to their level of incompetence. When we talk about intentional difference and we talk about the leadership triangle, we are forcing people to once again look at themselves first. Okay, when you choose a job or when you're offered a management job, the first question you ought to ask is not how much more money I'm going to make, but am I truly equipped to be an effective manager?
What's the percentage of people who arrive in this position actually admit, I'm not a manager, I'm a salesman, I'm a line worker, I'm a sergeant, but I'm not a leader?
The sad part is that most people actually will accept the offer. Okay, in fact,
because it's more money.
But not only that, the organizational culture, all right, adds a stigma to you if you refuse to accept it.
Correct. I've heard, Ken, that in many companies today, if you don't move up, you move out.
Exactly. All right, and that's too sad. Now, in the cutting edge companies, all right, we actually change the construct of work. So work shouldn't be something that I'm forced to do or paid to do. It should be an extension of who I am. I mean, think about it. If I came to work to do what I do naturally, all right, then less important to me is how much more money I'm going to make. Instead, what's more important to me is how much more can I contribute. Then as far as supervision is concerned, if I'm coming to do what I naturally do, then I'm actually exceeding expectations that a manager could put on me because I'm creative, I'm in my sweet spot, I'm energized by the work I do.
Is it true that there's an increasing number of people who don't want to accept promotions to leadership and management because they're afraid that just gets me that closer to the door if things go wrong.
Absolutely.
If I stay where I am, I could probably stay for a while. But if I move up, now I'm the one that's going to put the finger to if something goes wrong.
And the saddest instances of that when it comes to careers and organizations is in healthcare and in education, where your best teachers, who should actually be master teachers teaching other teachers how to teach, will not accept a promotion. First of all, because the structure for promotion says you have to be an administrator. The best schools are changing it so that there is such a cadre of teachers that are called master teachers who will then teach other teachers.
Who did you write this book for, Leadership Triangle? Were you thinking a particular industry or a particular time? What prompted you to write it now? Well, it was actually last year.
Yes, what happened for us is that, I spend most of my days in the C-suite. Most of my conversations are with the CEO and his other chief officers. And as I spent time in there, Mark, it was amazing to see that one of the things that was actually missing was that there were no leaders who are actively being the leader. Now let me explain what I mean. Okay? They were busy being leaders, and they were creating followers. And what we absolutely need more of, not only certainly in business, but in the country at large, all right, is for leaders to be developing other leaders. And this book was designed to help leaders recognize that what their first responsibility is to develop other leaders, not followers.
Will readers who look at this book also learn how an important component of leadership is to teach other people you are leading to become leaders?
Absolutely. And once you read this book, especially chapters 6, 7, and 8, when you read the Leadership Triangle, chapters 6, 7, and 8, you'll see that it's about people. It's about how it is you create an environment where people are giving more of their discretionary efforts.
You got kudos from Stephen Covey,
yes.
I think. What did he say when he first heard you were going to do this book?
He said it's timely. He says it's something that we need to hear, and it changes the way we look at leadership. Because again, until now, we have been considering leadership as a noun, where leadership is actually a verb.
What is your intentional difference? It's the leap from Leadership Triangle to this. What are you telling people in this book?
In the Leadership Triangle, we say that there are 3 options that leaders must be aware of and learn to master. They must learn to master the tactical option, where there are problems that are tactical that will only be solved if you apply tactical solutions. We teach them also that the strategic and transformational is likewise. The challenge is that most leaders never attain the transformational level of leadership. The way in which you get there is to understand how you are different and how can you use that difference to make a difference. 85% Mark of what you do, most people are capable of doing. 10% of what you do, Mark, select people can do or be trained to do. But 5% of what you do, Mark, and the way you do it, the way you do this radio show, is uniquely Mark. The ideas you have, the approach you take, all right, the interaction you have with your guests, it's uniquely and significantly Mark. And what we do in this book is we teach people how to come to understand what their 5% zone is and how to live and work in there more daily by teaching them about the 6 dimensions of their intentional difference.
Is the work culture changing with big companies now where they don't have time to develop leaders? It seems that we're hearing, because of the changing economic climate and challenges, we don't have time to develop that person or we've got to plug somebody in who could just keep the machines running and the place operating. Is it getting harder to find the people who recognize these talents?
Absolutely. The thing is, the challenge is that most organizations are suffering from that. And I think it's a fatal flaw for most organizations, that they're trying to hire people who they can plug and play based upon the resume and the experience and the jobs they've done before. It's the wrong approach. All right? Now, the idea is right. You ought to be able to bring people in, and you need to bring people in who could plug and play, but not on the premise of what they have done before or what their qualifications is, but rather how aware are they as to where it is they make their greatest contribution, and how is the culture of the organization going to allow that person the freedom to bring themselves to work instead of having to be somebody else to work here.
Ken Tucker is our guest. We're talking about the leadership triangle and his new book, Your Intentional Difference. Does this training transcend all cultures? In other words, you have the Bahamas. Do they run business the same way in the Bahamas as they do in the United States, as they do in Canada, as they do in China? I know that cultural differences dictate how people behave, how they speak to each other, how they shake hands. But does your training, does your advice from your books, does it transcend all cultures?
In this book, you will see case studies from Saudi Arabia. You'll see case studies from Monterrey, Mexico. You'll see case studies from the Bahamas. And obviously, you'll see case studies in here from the Danube. I mean, around the world, this is generalizable. Good science is generalizable. When you hit on a truth that's a universal truth, it doesn't matter where you go. And if you think about it, all humans are different. And we kind of have an inkling that we're different. Around the world, people know they're different. The challenge is 70% of them have no way of articulating it. They do not know how to say it. This book helps people around the world to identify their difference.
Help us with the age-old question, men are better managers, women are better managers. I found in my experience of the managers that I had that directed me, I performed better and did better when I had women managers as opposed to men. And I felt that in the instances that I had women managers, they gave me more freedom to succeed. There was less micromanagement. Not that I have it now, but I found that overall, they were willing to take more risk if they saw the potential within the talent. Does that happen a lot more in other countries than it does here, or what?
Well, certainly by culture, we end up with a significant difference as to who's in management roles. Obviously, in some of the Arab countries, you won't find women in leadership or management. Yes?
Does that hurt business because they don't realize that?
Absolutely. But the interesting thing is, in some of the cutting edge, United Emirates states, more and more they are opening up for more women to be involved. Because the truth is, women really bring an amazing new dimension from a leadership style perspective, all right, than men have been trained or socialized to bring. Beyond that, though, I just want to say that whether it's male or female, the best managers are those who are, first of all, managing self. And they have a greater degree of self-awareness. In our culture, men take less time on introspective, reflective times because that's not how we've been socialized. Okay. Women spend more time, all right? And so that shows up in how they understand self and therefore manage and motivate others.
Before you go, I want to come back to the psychologist element of this. Yeah. That it's important now. When people have asked me in my own industry, I say, learn about the law, learn about every aspect of your community and society, and take good psychology courses. Take a lot of that because you're going to be dealing with people who come from different paradigms and different issues. Why is it that companies in the United States still haven't gotten it, that they need to hire managers who understand people, that they have issues, they may be coming from a different angle, and manage them properly, not cookie cutter. Mm-hmm. Everybody's going to be treated this way. Yes, you have to treat them fairly and equally. However, how you manage people, you've got to have that psychological element.
Yeah, so part of what happens in most companies is that a good salesperson gets promoted and rewarded, all right, to be manager of the salespeople.
Because if he's a good salesman, he must be a good talent to be a manager.
Which is ludicrous, right? All right, and so that's one of the flaws that continues to happen. The other thing that happens is that we make the assumption that management is something that all people can learn and master. And if you think about it, there are nurses, for example, who would say, I was doing my work and a patient interrupted me. Yeah. You see what's wrong with that picture? What's wrong with that picture is we got a nurse who really is in love with medicine, but hates people.
Is it possible that you can have a good manager who is not a good line worker?
Oh, absolutely, absolutely. And
companies don't realize that, though.
Because you could have, leaders. Many leaders are great team leaders, but not great team members.
Yeah. It's a great book. It's called The Leadership Triangle, and then there's the follow-up, which is The Intentional Difference. Ken Tucker, our guest today on Bookmark. Ken's great seeing you.
Thank you, Marc. Thank you so much. Appreciate that.
That's Bookmark for this week. If you have comments or thoughts on future authors, send an email to us at our website, bookmark.us. That's our broadcast for today. Thanks for watching.